Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Craig Mish back with you here for another show here on this Tuesday. Awesome to be with you here as we put a bow on the NFL season, move, of course, towards Major League Baseball. This week is the All-Star break coming up, too. We got the NBA All-Star game coming up this weekend. We'll touch on it with Gilbert McGregor. He's going to be with us on the show in just a few minutes. Our guest contributor, of course, always from Legal Sports Report. And Brady Kannon will join us as golf is in full swing. We've had some wild finishes over on the PGA Tour, so we'll get a preview of the upcoming tournaments, which include Tiger Woods making his way back to the golf course as well. So that and a whole lot more here on the show as we charge toward the Major League Baseball season. We've got pitchers and catchers reporting in Arizona with Los Angeles and San Diego. Why, you may ask, if they reported first? Because, of course, they're going to be playing overseas to start the season. Rest of the teams getting ready, about 48 hours away from being back on the field. So while the NBA takes a break, college basketball heats up. Of course, we've got the NHL going on as well. And believe it or not, the one thing that we haven't got the full taste of this offseason, let's be honest, is the hot stove in Major League Baseball. It has been like the warm stove. It's like when you put the water on and you want to cook some pasta. Chicken parm with the pasta would be good, by the way. But when you're cooking the pasta and you don't put it all the way on hot and it's just like taking a while, and you're just like, all right, finally, let me turn the whole thing up. Maybe that's what we're going to get this week. Maybe. I don't think so, but maybe. We got a signing this morning, reported by the San Francisco Chronicle. Susan Slusser was first, as Jeff Passan says here. Jorge Soler, 3-year deal, $42 million to be the designated hitter in San Francisco to play in the Bay Area. So that deal is finally done. He, of course, played with the Marlins last season, helped them get to the postseason, and now has moved on to much richer pastures. Now, also keep in mind, state tax in California are going to limit that a little bit, but still $42 million over a 3-year period. Came off a 3-year deal with Miami for $36 million, opted out of that second year to get that second long-term deal. All right, now let's go over to the NFL. Biggest surprise, I would say, on the show as we start today. How about this? Super Bowl sets a ratings record. We could just do this again next year. Save that graphic, Sam. Put it in the show next year. We'll do it the same way. Here's the numbers. 123.4 million viewers, 7% increase from last year, most watched TV program ever. Congratulations. David Ray has been hired as the Commanders tight end coach, former Buccaneers assistant coach, and also reunites with Cliff Kingsbury. He was a member of the Arizona Cardinals coaching staff as well. The Mitchell Trubisky era in Pittsburgh is officially over. They brought him in as a backup. He was forced to start a number of games. They ended up releasing him, and they clear $13 million of cap space. And Pittsburgh probably looking for quarterback help, I would guess, in the offseason. Dallas Cowboys make an interesting hire. We had heard Rex Ryan maybe was a possibility for the Cowboys as their defensive coordinator, but they bring in, honestly, one of the best in the game over the last couple of decades, Mike Zimmer, who was a fantastic defensive coordinator in the past, head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. He replaces Dan Quinn. Zimmer goes over to take over that defense in Dallas. Now, a historical night in college basketball with something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game. Bill Self last night in a 79-50 loss, and it wasn't the score that was the factor here. 79-50, the Jayhawks lost, first time in 21 seasons. Bill Self was ejected in a college basketball game. How about that? Indiana State is ranked, speaking of historical. They're ranked in the college basketball poll, the Sycamores, 23 in the country. The last time they were ranked was when somebody named this guy Larry Bird was playing on Indiana State. They're ranked in the top 25. Iowa State has moved up to number 2. Iowa has dropped back to number 4 in the women's college basketball rankings. And also, as we mentioned late on the show yesterday, it became official as UCLA has replaced Chip Kelly with their former running back, Deshaun Foster. He played at UCLA, 7 years in the NFL. You may have had him on your fantasy team when he was a member of the Carolina Panthers. I think it was him and Tim Biakabatuka. That's just without me Googling. I think it sounds familiar that the two of them were there at the same time. All right, in the NBA, we're about to take a break here for the All-Star game, so let's get to the latest in the NBA. Victor Wembanyama, he got a triple-double last night. Not a huge surprise. Spurs beat the Raptors 122-99, but it was the first triple-double with blocks in over 3 years. Wemby's awesome. It's a foregone conclusion. This guy's a superstar in the NBA. Crew chief Ed Malloy says the late-game foul against the Knicks was wrong. The Rockets got on a very fortunate win, as we would call it, on a three-point shot. The Rockets beat the Knicks, by the way, 105-103. Knicks, certainly still playing good basketball. Steve Kerr, Warriors staff, attended a funeral for their former assistant in Serbia. He had an unfortunate situation with a heart attack back in January. They attended his funeral, and the Bucks keep winning 112-95 over Denver. 6.5 games back of Boston. I guess the early season struggles for Doc Rivers and company have been put to an end. Okay, so in case you were watching the PGA Tour over the weekend, you may have noticed that the Waste Management Open in Phoenix, which is popular because they allow fans to scream and yell and do everything there while they're on the golf course, I don't know. It looks like there's a chance that this may be going away because the Open leadership are considering some changes to the Waste Management Open. Incidents with fans and golfers overcrowding on the course. Alcohol sales were suspended Saturday and Sunday. You saw some of the golfers walking up to some of the fans. Not unusual at the Waste Management Open, but maybe more so is they're considering making some changes. If indeed this is the case, it would not make the Waste Management Open all that unique because that is sort of the unique part of that tournament. Tiger Woods launches his Sunday Red in conjunction with his new contract with TaylorMade. He left Nike earlier this year. He says he's going to play in the Genesis Open. We'll see if that comes to fruition. English soccer clubs spent 80% less on international transfers in January 2024 compared to the window a year ago in 2023. And as we know, Morgan Riley is going to be out a long time. And cross-check that he had is hit over the weekend. Maple Leafs are bracing for an extended period. And having an in-person hearing allows the league to suspend him for more than 6 games. There is some speculation that this could end up being at least a week or two. 6 games would be more than 2 weeks, actually, in the NHL as well. So we'll see what happens there. So that's the latest. That's what's going on in sports. Of course, we're moving on here from the Super Bowl. You're going to start to hear some moves and notes with the Chiefs and, of course, with the San Francisco 49ers because teams have been waiting to hire their coaches away since the Super Bowl has ended. And for our programming, you can learn a lot more about what we're doing here. We still have a ton of in-game live programming, a huge slate in college basketball tonight. If you want to find out the news, the odds, the scores, just download the SportsGrid app. I'm going to show it to you here on your screen. Just take out your phone and scan that thing right there. The QR code is there. Hit it. iOS, Android, completely free. Download it now. It is the SportsGrid app. We launched this a little bit less than a year ago, and it's awesome and keeps you updated with everything that we have going on here on our channel. All right, coming up next, we got Gilbert McGregor in the house. He's up in Boston this week covering the National Basketball Association. Talk a little bit about the Lakers. They play tonight against the Detroit Pistons. They're obviously huge favorites, as everybody is, over Detroit. They made an ad over the weekend. Also, we'll preview the Thunder and the Magic as we head toward the All-Star breaks. Is SGA going to win the MVP? We'll discuss that. Also, Rookie of the Year odds as well, although feels like a foregone conclusion. I have a feeling we know who's going to win the Rookie of the Year in the NBA. Just something tells me the guy who had a triple-double last night wins it. But we'll see if Gilbert can make a case for anyone else next here on NewsWire.
Scoring 19.7 points per game, 13.1 rebounds, and 8.2 assists. How can a center that is top 50 in scoring, first in rebounding, 7th in assists, and 8th in field goal percentage not make the All-Star team? That is such a huge snub for Domantas Sabonis.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Over $200 million in the state of New York in sports betting, half of that going to the state. All thumbs up, I guess, across the board here, right?
Yeah, New York just continues to be the standard bearer for the industry. People are betting a ton on NFL. We've still got March Madness coming up. This is really the prime time for the U.S. sports calendar with the NFL playoffs, Super Bowl, and then, college basketball, NBA, NHL in full swing.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
What are you thinking overall, kind of first reaction here? Patrick Mahomes, his legacy.
I don't know how far his drive is. Is his drive to become known as the greatest quarterback of all time? I don't think matching Super Bowls will really do that. I think there'll always be, the Brady people will always say, listen, it's a different era.
Football Full Circle, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
Well, look at the Heisman Trophy
The early
race
line.
and what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon, not bought at the deadline.
NewsWire.
We're getting a lot of news, trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterbacks,
Pharrell
backup quarterbacks.
coast to coast.
I want to watch great players make buckets and win games.
Game time decisions.
I have no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they
In-game live. Prime time.
Yard for a grand slam.
The bottom of the fourth inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports Rage
That was
Late
good betting.
Night.
We waited for 1.5. We got paid.
We did.
Didn't like the 2.5. Jumped on
There's
it.
no taking weeks off in golf betting ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Great to have you back here on the show and also previewing the NBA slate as we head toward the All-Star break. All-Star game, of course, coming up this weekend. Gilbert McGregor, no doubt, will be watching it. The slam dunk contest, the three-point, everything else. Let's bring Gilbert in to discuss the latest in the NBA. Hey, Gilbert, great to have you back here. Hope all is well.
All is well. Great to be back, Craig.
All right, so let's start off here with the trade deadline that has come and gone. And, naturally some moves were made and started off real hot. I thought we were going to get a lot of activity. We kind of did a lot of smaller deals, I think, that may move some needles at the end of the season or maybe in the playoffs. One of those moves was the Lakers signing Spencer Dinwiddie, who was let go. He's expected to make his debut tonight for the Lakers. They play the Detroit Pistons. LeBron and Anthony Davis are both game time decisions, and the Lakers are 11-point favorites. But naturally, there's going to be a lot of eyes on Dinwiddie to see what he can contribute. Lakers, by the way, Gilbert, notorious for doing these little deals over the last few years around the trade deadline to bring some players in to fit the culture, to fit what they're doing in LA. Do you think he fits that?
I do, Craig. It's a big move on a number of levels, I think, for this Lakers team. They brought in Gabe Vincent in the offseason from Miami and really had high expectations for him to be that secondary playmaker in some lineups, but also do big things in their second unit. And he's been injured all season. It's unclear whether or not he'll be back in the lineup soon, but now adding Spencer Dinwiddie, who is a big guard, who's done big things on the playoff stage during his time with Dallas, that's big for this Lakers team. It's also a homecoming for Spencer Dinwiddie, who's from the Los Angeles area. So you talk about that Lakers spotlight and being prepared for that Lakers spotlight and the Laker lore. He's definitely ready for that. He's played on big stages, and he even came down to choosing between the Lakers and the Mavericks, and he kind of explained why the Lakers were his choice. So having an opportunity to have him play alongside LeBron James and Anthony Davis, provide some secondary playmaking, provide some shooting. I think that he could be a very big pickup for a Lakers team that's looking to make a run as the season winds down.
Yeah, and by the way, their odds to win the championship, it's kind of funny here. They're really prohibitive. I mean, they're 50-1. Regular season wins 43.5. For me, it's like I don't see the Lakers winning the championship, but you look at a lot of the other teams that are in the range, and it leads you down the road to think, look, I mean, they have squeaked their way into these play-in games and the West, and they're simply going to try to do that again and then make a run at the playoffs. You see those lines there, Gilbert. Is there anything that catch? I mean, let's use the 27-1 because I think taking them to win the championship's a little optimistic. Is that a pick of any kind that you would make? 27-1 to win the West?
Last year taught us that anything could happen with this Lakers team specifically. They made a run from the play-in tournament to the Western Conference Finals where they were, quite frankly, outmatched. I do think the West has gotten much stronger this year with the emergence of the Clippers and obviously the emergence of the young teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Minnesota Timberwolves. That said, I think this Lakers team is banking on their playoff experience, banking on the fact that they've made a championship run with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Those guys are 4 years older than they were when they won the championship in 2020, but still, they're still playing at an all-star level, top 10, top 15 player in the league, depending on who you ask. And I don't think that they're afraid of some of these less established teams. I think the Clippers and the Nuggets don't count in that group, but if you can get the way, especially the way the teams at the top of the Western Conference are sorted out, they could end up eliminating one another, creating a better path for the Lakers to maybe have some good matchups. I don't think the Lakers are capable of going that far, but at the same time, if things shake their way and these small moves in the margins can help them out, it's not completely out of the realm of possibility.
All right, so let's preview another game tonight in the NBA because we're going to be taking a break from these for a little bit here. Good game tonight, by the way. Thunder at the Magic. Orlando playing okay. Oklahoma City -3 on the road. 223.5 is the total there. We're going to talk a little MVP coming up. And it would be interesting if the MVP was a 3-letter MVP in SGA, right? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. What's very interesting is that the favorite to win the MVP, Gilbert, doesn't change. It's still Nikola Jokic. But you're starting to see SGA go from +400 to +350 to +300. Look at this morning, +270 now. If this thing creeps to like +240, there's a legit shot this guy could win it. It's coming.
It's incredible to look at his rise, and I think that he's really establishing himself as a superstar in the NBA. Every time we expect Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to be impacted or affected by other teams' defenses or thinking he's not going to be a guy who can score 30 points night in and night out, he proves us wrong. And I think that is the big MVP characteristic that he has for this Thunder team. I mentioned they're standing in the Western Conference right now. I think he has a great case if this Thunder team is able to finish with a top 2 seed in the Western Conference. He is the main reason. They have a really good team around him, but they've rallied around him, and he has been what's allowed many of those guys to really move ahead of schedule where they are in their development. You talk about a Chet Holmgren or a Jalen J-Dub Williams, Josh Giddey. The guys on their team who have played well this season, Lou Dort as well, are playing well because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has established himself as a superstar. And we talk about the MVP narrative for a guy like that. I really do think he's going to continue to make this push as we head into the All-Star break and they look to make their playoff push.
All right, so now let's get to the Rookie of the Year. Do we need to spend a lot of time on this? Because Victor Wembanyama is going to win it. Now, look, this may have been a little bit different at the beginning of the season, Gilbert, but we just have too much data now. And we've seen this guy play. And nothing against Chet Holmgren. In a different season, Chet would probably be the favorite to win the Rookie of the Year or close to it. But when a generational talent comes into the NBA like this and he's putting up triple-doubles and fans around the league, is it fair to say he's like the number one attraction when the team comes to town? It seems like that from what I'm seeing, because wherever San Antonio goes, people want to go see him play. Brandon Miller got some odds there we showed, and the Heat kid, Jacquez Jr., he's been great too. He's not going to win a Rookie of the Year. Can we make a case for anyone else here? That this seems like an open and shut case, and we're only in February.
It's funny how it's kind of happened. At the beginning of the year, we all thought it was going to be Wembanyama, and Chet Holmgren made a great case. And honestly, maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago, there wasn't really a wrong answer. It looked like it was going to be a race to the finish line between those two guys. But now looking at what Victor Wembanyama is doing, a triple-double with blocks last night. I think he's the second triple-double of the season. He had one with assists earlier in the year. He's so special. And the incredible thing is he's really just figuring out the NBA game. So to say that he's going to be better 2 weeks from now than he is today, and by the end of the year, he's going to be probably an all-star caliber player at 20 years old, it's a runaway for him to win a Rookie of the Year. And it's going to be the first of a lot of trophies that he takes home throughout his career. And I'm sure the Spurs will be back on the mountaintop sooner rather than later with him at the forefront of it.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay, let's preview another game here over on the West Coast. The Kings are taking on the Suns here on the Tuesday night NBA primary action here. Phoenix -5, total of 245 in this game. And, certainly Phoenix is, again, chasing championship aspirations here at the end of the season. One game scenario tonight. Who do you like here in this game?
I like Phoenix tonight. Phoenix is really trending in the right direction. Sacramento has been struggling a bit lately. Phoenix has won 5 of their last 7. One of those losses was that game-winning dagger from Steph Curry in a game that they really kind of had in the bag until Steph Curry did what Steph Curry does. This Suns team has been really good at home this season, but specifically as of late. And I think that the Kings are just going to have their hands full with what the Suns are bringing to the table, specifically Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, that all-star duo that they have.
All right, so we're laying 5 points tonight with the Phoenix Suns. Gilbert, enjoy your coldness. Enjoy the snow up north. And we will catch up again next week. Thanks again and enjoy the All-Star game too and the dunk contest as well. Thanks for coming on.
Sounds good, Craig. I'll try to stay warm. All
right, Gilbert McGregor joining us. Gilbert still loves, by the way, the dunk contest and the 3-point contest. Every year he comes on the show, he's making a case for it. I'm like, it stinks. And then, it's 50-50 at the end of this thing. But I'm going to try to watch it this year. And then next week with Gilbert, I'll tell him what I think. We'll be joined next, of course, by our guest contributor from Legal Sports Report, and we'll be right back.
Scoring 19.7 points per game, 13.1 rebounds, and 8.2 assists. How can a center that is top 50 in scoring, first in rebounding, 7th in assists, and 8th in field goal percentage not make the All-Star team? That is such a huge snub for Domantas Sabonis.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Over $200 million in the state of New York in sports betting, half of that going to the state. All thumbs up, I guess, across the board here, right?
Yeah, New York just continues to be the standard bearer for the industry. People are betting a ton on NFL. We still got March Madness coming up. This is really the prime time for the U.S. sports calendar with the NFL playoffs, Super Bowl, and then, college basketball, NBA, NHL in full swing.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
What are you thinking overall, kind of first reaction here? Patrick Mahomes, his legacy.
I don't know how far his drive is. Is his drive to become known as the greatest quarterback of all time? I don't think matching Super Bowls will really do that. I think there'll always be, the Brady people will always say, listen, it's a different era.
Football Full Circle, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
Well, look at the Heisman Trophy.
The early line.
And what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon. Not bought at the deadline.
NewsWire.
We're getting a lot of news, trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterbacks,
Pharrell
backup quarterbacks.
coast to coast.
I want to watch great players make buckets and win games.
Game time decisions.
I have no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they
in-game live.
Just
prime time.
Yard for a grand slam.
The bottom of the 4th inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports Rage
That was
late
good
night.
We waited for 1.5. We got paid.
We did.
Did like the 2.5. Jumped on. There's no taking weeks off in golf betting ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. Matthew Waters is with us from Legal Sports Report. He enjoyed the Super Bowl, and of course, now we get back to our world of controversy as it surrounds sports betting. We're going to get to it here. We got a big piece of news to deliver here on the show today, at least I think. And Matthew, of course, has had some time to unpack it as well. So let's bring him in, Matthew Waters. And Matthew, our top story in the sports betting universe today is that ESPN Bet, now, of course, being run by Penn Entertainment, is coming to New York. But that's only part of the story because they're doing it through another company. So thanks for coming on and tell us exactly how this is going to work.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Craig. Always love to be here, especially with breaking news like this. Yeah, Penn is buying the license of Wynn Resorts. Now, this has been rumored for a little while. As you know, WynnBET just pulled out of Massachusetts. And later, on the late part of last year, they started to really wind down where they were going to be operating. Wynn has always looked at WynnBET as just a service that it was providing for its customers. It said as much when it got this New York license a couple years ago, which is kind of shocking because they paid $25 million to have this license, and they were just looking at it as, a commodity for their customers. And so now they said that they were going to keep New York and Michigan and, see maybe what was out there. And we reported from analyst reports in December that this was starting to really get some traction, that Penn was really looking to buy into the market. And so now we have Penn buying Wynn's license at face value, $25 million. Not sure why that's the price, if I'm being honest. It doesn't account for anything Wynn has done in the state, just simply covers that license fee. Great deal for Penn, obviously. And look, when Penn originally did not get a license, if you remember, they partnered with Fanatics back before Fanatics even had a gambling brand. And now both are going to be in the state. But Jay Snowden, the Penn CEO, said back then, look, I don't think anybody's going to make money in New York with this 51% tax rate. But then also said something to the tune of, would you rather be in it? Yeah, I guess you would rather be in it. Now, at that point, they had a little bit of insight into how Barstool was doing. And as we now know, the Barstool business was just completely underwhelming for Penn in the way that, Barstool was unable to translate those stoolies into actual bettors. Now they're trying something with a much larger footprint with ESPN. And they're saying, look, it's better to be in, right? They can't go in and expect to make a ton of money, especially after your CEO said nobody will. But it's better to be in. It gives you, better return on the national advertising. It just adds something to the portfolio when you can say, yeah, we're live in New York. So there's no operators that are happy to be in New York and paying the 51%, not being able to deduct their promotions and, everything you might see in other states. But Penn, it seemed like Penn really, really wanted to get in, and now they're in, and they say they'll be live this year.
Yeah, no, I think it's fascinating because, again, you have companies, some that are leaving states, some that are jumping in. And look, ESPN Bet is going to be a player in this, but it also, I think, tells you that they're not doing well. I don't want to say that, but I think that maybe not satisfied with what they have in some of the states and the acquisition of other companies. I think that's something to watch. Okay, shocking news from our producer Sam here. He tells me that Super Bowl betting is up. This is shocking. I cannot believe it. I'm kidding here. I mean, this is like the most obvious thing ever. 22% sports betting volume. How about sports betting accounts? People that have signed up for accounts. How far is that up?
Yeah, you know what? There were so since the beginning of the football season, we're looking at almost 14 million new accounts from GeoComply customers. GeoComply is the company they're one of the companies that does your geolocation in the US. So every time you try to log in to make a bet, whatever, usually you're pinging with GeoComply. There's another company out there, XPoint. So they have a lot of data that they threw out yesterday, and it's a lot. So there's 13.7 million new accounts. In the 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, Craig, it was 1.77 million new users that signed up with GeoComply customers. And that nearly 14 million jump from for the season, that's up 28% from last season. Now, yeah, this isn't all organic growth. you're talking about new states, right? You're talking about Massachusetts, talking about Kentucky. So you're definitely getting new states in there. But as we know, and as DraftKings has really been beating the drum, we know that these older states are still seeing really good business. So I think you saw growth across the board here. Notable for GeoComply. Now, when they talk about transactions, again, that's not always a bet. Geolocation companies are constantly pinging you to find out where you are, and they're going to ping you if you're closer to the border of an illegal state than if you're in the middle of a state. And so naturally, when you're in Kansas City, you're going to get a lot of pings, but they saw almost 15,000 transactions a second before kickoff. That was pretty huge. They have a really cool map that they're able to break things down, and it breaks your heart for everybody in Missouri. You just see all these red pings showing up because they don't have the betting. And meanwhile, on the other side, it's green and luscious. And it just shows how big of an event the Super Bowl really is. I mean, you think about events that may produce better number. You think about March Madness, for example. And on a whole, yeah, March Madness is more important for these companies. But a one-day event, when you're trying to get eyes on a product, when you're trying to maximize what you're doing, I mean, these companies all work for the Super Bowl, basically. They work to get these customers up and running, and then they'll try to string you through until football season starts again. So yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly shocked to see an incredibly healthy Super Bowl betting market. But one thing that we are looking at, though, is just how these companies are going to do from a revenue and profit standpoint, frankly, because obviously the way that the game shook out was really good for bettors. So we're seeing different things. There's some analysts that are saying, there may be a negative hold. They may have lost money. While others are saying, well, when you look at the companies that are really pushing the same game parlays, DraftKings and FanDuel, they may have had double-digit holds. So we have some work to do to find out what really happened. FanDuel, by the way, more than 14 million bets, $307 million in handle on the game. That's a new record, too, from 2.5 million active users. So we're going to wait and see just how these companies did. But at the end of the day, if they lost a couple $1 million from the Super Bowl, the FaceTime they get from the advertising, the promotions that they're able to send out now and try to keep those new customers from leaving. Everybody's working on retention now. You have to say the Super Bowl was a win for everybody involved.
Yeah, Matt, I said this on the show yesterday. They'll make it back tonight and tomorrow and the next day. I find that to be one of the more ridiculous conversations, to be that the books got killed. They're going to make it back up over the next week or two and move forward. Like, I mean, please. I mean, it's not, you know what it is, Matt? It's not for me that the books got killed. When they used to say that in Las Vegas, maybe it was a little bit different. But with the volume of people all across the country that are now able to place bets, this is not just those handful of casinos on the Strip in Las Vegas. This is everywhere in the country. And then I guess the counter to say that, well, that's more money lost by the books. Yes, but they will make more money back just on sheer volume on the NBA and college basketball and golf and hockey and soccer and everything else.
Absolutely.
So for me, maybe I'm cynical. I don't buy that conversation. Okay, so is Maryland the only state that is trying to geotag campuses in college from sports betting? Because I guess I'm not understanding this, because if kids are in college, there are some, if not a lot, maybe some kids just want to stay in college forever. They're way over 21 years old, but there are kids who are 21, right, who can legally bet. So what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, think about Van Wilder. How many years would he have under his belt to be betting on campus right now? Look, this is an overreaction to what has happened in Iowa, in my personal opinion. In Iowa, you had a couple of different athletes caught betting. And so, maybe the easiest way is to say, look, let's just lock down campus. Let's put up a geofence so none of these can work on campus. Look, this is the first that we're seeing from a state that's offering this, that's suggesting this. I don't think this gets passed, but it could, right? I mean, you're not always talking about the most educated people in sports betting when you're talking about the legislatures around the country that are making these decisions. And so if you get the right people in there banging the right drums, saying the right, let's face it, scary words, this could pass and it could become something that other states do. I hope it doesn't come to that, right? We have to do a better job. The sportsbooks have to do a better job of making sure that they're following up on potential sketchy accounts. That includes when you have an account in one name and a payment method in another name. That wasn't necessarily scrutinized as much as it should have been in Iowa. So this is really overkill, but it's something that the industry needs to wake up and say, okay, look, we need to make changes before others make the changes for us.
Yeah, and who knows? I mean, Matt, they could start geotagging elementary schools too. Got to be careful. Those 5-year-olds reading Charlotte's Web, hitting bet on that sports
You
book.
never know.
Ridiculous. Anyway, Matt, great to see you. We'll catch up again next week. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, sir.
All right, Brady Kannon is with us up next, talking golf.
Scoring 19.7 points per game, 13.1 rebounds, and 8.2 assists. How can a center that is top 50 in scoring, first in rebounding, 7th in assists, and 8th in field goal percentage not make the All-Star team? That is such a huge snub for Domantas Sabonis.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Over $200 million in the state of New York in sports betting, half of that going to the state. All thumbs up, I guess, across the board here, right?
Yeah, New York just continues to be the standard bearer for the industry. People are betting a ton on NFL. We still got March Madness coming up. This is really the prime time for the U.S. sports calendar with the NFL playoffs, Super Bowl, and then, college basketball, NBA, NHL in full swing.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
What are you thinking overall, kind of first reaction here? Patrick Mahomes, his legacy.
I don't know how far his drive is. Is his drive to become known as the greatest quarterback of all time? I don't think matching Super Bowls will really do that. I think there'll always be, the Brady people will always say, listen, it's a different era.
Football Full Circle, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
Well, look at the Heisman Trophy.
The early line.
And what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon. Not bought at the deadline.
NewsWire.
We're getting a lot of news, trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterbacks,
Pharrell,
backup quarterbacks.
coast to coast.
I want to watch great players make buckets and win games.
Game time decisions.
I have no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they
In-game live,
Just
prime
took 'em
time.
yard for a grand slam.
In the bottom of the fourth inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports Rage
That was
Late
good betting.
Night.
We waited for 1.5. We got paid.
We did.
Patient, didn't like the 2.5. Jumped on
There's
it.
no taking weeks off in golf betting ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Brady Cannon's with us. We got the Genesis Invitational coming up, and definitely want to dive into the odds on that because, if you pick the winner in, let's say, 2 of the PGA tournaments in the last 5 or 6 weeks, you could probably have bought yourself a nice car or a nice gift for somebody. Like it's been crazy. We're gonna get to that. First, let's hit on the Super Bowl real quick and put a bow on the season, as Brady has joined us every week, done a great job breaking it down, talking about props, games as well. Brady lives in Las Vegas. Of course, he was part of our coverage last week on SportsGrid. Brady, thanks for coming on. I hope you enjoyed being with the crew, enjoyed the game as well. It was an overtime game, boring for a bit, but a strong finish in the end that kept everybody watching right to the last second.
You're absolutely right. The second half really delivered. I was a little, worried in the first half because I was like, boy, this is, looking like a really boring Super Bowl. As a 49er fan, I was happy. As you and I have talked about, I think picking a side in this game was very, very difficult. So I played some alternate lines, played some prop bets, and ended up turning a profit. But my boyhood team, the 49ers, were unable to get over the hump once again. I think they'll be okay. It's kind of similar to his dad's career, Mike Shanahan, when he couldn't win the big one for a minute and then got a couple in the 90s with John Elway. I think Kyle Shanahan's time will come, and he'll probably have a couple of these things before he's done. But I tell you, it was great. It was fantastic being out here with the Sports Grid crew and Radio Row and the MGM Grand and all that good stuff. We covered a golf tournament out at TPC Las Vegas. Max Crosby's foundation was the beneficiary there. But I was just super proud of our town, Craig. Las Vegas basically threw this thing without a hitch, and it was tremendous. There was VIP parties everywhere. U2 was playing at the Sphere. I mean, there was so much going on for this week. And like I say, it went off relatively smooth. I think everybody had a great time. The NFL was thrilled. Roger Goodell was singing the praises. It's probably going to be 5 years, I would say, before we have another one. And I would say it'll probably be every 4 or 5, 6 years that we continue to have Super Bowls out here in the desert.
Yeah, I mean, Miami's in a rotation. Glendale's in a rotation. Tampa every once in a while, too. New Orleans seems to be in that, too. There's no reason why Las Vegas shouldn't be as well. Okay, so 185 million wagered in Nevada. That's the number, Brady, for this past Super Bowl, which does break the record. And we're just going to continue to do this every year. Like I don't think we're ever going to get to a year where less people are watching the Super Bowl and less people are betting on the Super Bowl. I would contend that honestly, it wouldn't have mattered if Buffalo got to the Super Bowl against San Francisco. I think it would have broke every record as well. It's just the taste for wagering is out there and everybody wants to have a piece of it. And it happened online in the United States and also in Nevada as well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, Craig. And we basically see it every year. If it doesn't break the record every year, maybe it comes up just short one year, but then they break it again the next year. So it's, 2 out of every 3 years, it seems, that we're breaking records. And that trend ought to continue, maybe, across the board without any blips because of the growth in wagering on a countrywide basis. And you could even have, 2 relatively dud teams in there, and you're probably at least going to still come close. You could argue that these were absolutely the 2 best teams in the NFL competing this year. Buffalo and Baltimore would have been right there as well. So, yeah, I mean, outside of a real outlier, we have a couple very unpopular teams. I think you're right. You're going to continue to break records in handle and viewership for the most part. I would say every, 3 to 5 years, 3 out of 5 years.
I would say probably more than that, Brady, but that would be another bet that we could make somewhere down the line.
Okay, under over 3.5, right? That's the number.
Right, I think so. All right, Brady. Now, look, man. Okay, listen. I after the first or second week of doing this with you with the PGA Tour, you were in lockstep. You're like, all right, I'm going to give everybody, all your viewers, a long shot here because that's what keeps happening. We got to hit one of these now, man. Like, you're diving deep. I like it, but this is the wackiest start to the PGA Tour season that we've ever had in January and February. We have players that are 50-1, 100-1 winning these tournaments. I don't know why it is happening. Maybe it's just a lot of the players going to Live Golf, But that does not explain why Scotty Scheffler has not won or Rory McIlroy has not won. Like, what has we're going to talk about the Genesis coming up, but what is going on this season? Is the sport now more it has more variance? Are there more variables for people winning? Because if so, I think you're going to see a massive change in the way that these odds are posted on FanDuel. I can't imagine why anybody would take Scotty Scheffler at plus 650 when I can throw a dart at somebody at 50 to 1 and have just as good a shot.
You know, it's really weird, Craig, and I don't quite know how to explain it. And some people will point towards Live Golf getting Jon Rahm and Tyrrell Hatton most recently. But, I mean, if you look at the Live Tour, there's only about a dozen guys that really make a difference. And most of those guys were gone before this season. Really, Hatton and Rahm are the only two, that have happened recently. Last year, it kind of reminds me of, in football, when you have a year that has so many games that go under the total or so many favorites winning, and then the market corrects itself in the following season, or even, at the midway point of that same season. Last year on the PGA Tour, we had a lot of favorites win outright. 8 players on the PGA Tour, 8 times it was that player at the very top of the board. And you remember Jon Rahm and Scotty Scheffler won a lot, especially to begin last season. So it seems like the reverse is in order now. I mean, depending on what store you shop at, you could very well say it's been 6 straight triple-digit winners this season. And you also brought it up. Chris Kirk in the first week, he just gets past Sahith Theegala, who was in the neighborhood of 30 to 1 or so. Scotty Scheffler, who I was on last week, he was at one point, minus 200 to win that tournament on about the 14th or 15th hole on Sunday. And then it ends up being a playoff between 2 triple-digit guys and Nick Taylor and, of all people, 47-year-old Charlie Hoffman. Pebble Beach, they cut the tournament short, and Wyndham Clark at many stores was triple digits. So weather has caused some oddities, but I really don't know how to explain it than maybe just a basic market correction. And just to be safe, I put another triple digit guy on my card this week.
I mean, you haven't come on the show and said yet that I think this is going to stop. That's what the interesting part of this is that we just really don't know. It's just a different dynamic over the last 6 weeks. So, all right, let's play the game again. Here it is. Outright winners to win the Genesis Invitational coming up this week at Pacific Palisades in California. As you can see, FanDuel is adjusting here a little bit. After Scotty Scheffler, no one is in the single digits here. Rory is 10 to 1. Victor Hovland now 14 to 1. Justin Thomas 16 to 1. Xander is 16 to 1. Let's continue, guys, and show the next graphic. We got Colin Morikawa at 18 to 1. Cantlay 18 to 1. I know you've been on Max Homa before. He's 20 to 1. Sam Burns is 22 to 1. Okay, so let's first play the top of the card, and then we'll get to some of the wagers that you make. Now, if indeed this was to normalize and regress back to the mean, and a favorite was to win this week, who would it be that we just showed on those graphics?
Well, the shortest shot that I played is Colin Morikawa at 20 to 1. I was able to find 20. I've seen as low as 14 to 1 on Morikawa. The correlated courses are really interesting this week, Craig. There is an extremely strong connection to success at the Masters as there is at Riviera. We've seen multiple crossover winners: Freddie Couples, Adam Scott, Mike Weir, Mickelson, Jon Rahm, Dustin Johnson, Nick Faldo. It just goes on and on. The guys that have success at Augusta also have success here. It's also been true. There's connection with the Honda Classic out your way in Palm Beach Gardens, the Fortinet Championship in Napa. There's been a lot of crossover success. And Kapalua to start the year, where Chris Kirk won. Kapalua has a strong connection to both Augusta National and Riviera as well. And Colin Morikawa, tremendous success at Kapalua. He's finished 10th and 5th at the Masters, and he's finished runner-up here before at Riviera. He's about, of all the guys on the board, he probably has some of the strongest numbers and connections to everything that says he ought to do well once again here this week. So I took a shot with Morikawa and then went a little bit deeper to Sam Burns at 25 to 1. who has also done well at a lot of the correlated courses, finished third here at Riviera in 2021. And maybe most of all, what I'm looking at is his current form. The guy's been on fire. He was about to win the American Express until the 71st hole of that tournament, came back and finished 10th at Pebble Beach the next week and was, denied a chance to do even better on Sunday when they cut that to 54 holes. And then last week in Phoenix, he shoots a 64 on Sunday to finish, I think it was 5th or 6th in Phoenix. So the guy has just been absolutely rolling and has had good history at this course before. So I played him at 25. And then a guy that has had great history at all the correlated courses. He's won a Honda Classic. He's won a Masters. That's Adam Scott at 33-1. He's won twice here at Riviera. And you think of Adam Scott as, getting up there in age, but he's playing very well once again. He comes off of a 20th place finish at Pebble Beach and an 8th place finish last week in Phoenix. And this is probably his favorite tournament on tour. So I expect him to do well. And then I went with another hot hand in Sahith Theegala. Guy probably should have won if it wasn't Scotty Scheffler. It probably should have been him last week in Phoenix. He finishes runner-up at Kapalua. Back in September, he won in Napa at Silverado. And he finished 9th in 2023 in his debut at the Masters. He nails it on the correlated courses. And he also had a top 10 finish here at Riviera last year as well, finishing 6th. He went to Pepperdine. He's very familiar with this area, the turf around the course, the Poana grass, the Kikuyu in the fairways. So Sahith Theegala, another player that made a lot of sense for me at 38-1. And then finally, my triple digit, my friend. You got to have one on the card these days, it seems. And I thought this price was pretty high on Chris Kirk. I've seen him as low as 80-1. I was able to find 115. The guy has won a Honda Classic. He just won earlier this year at Kapalua. Hasn't played a whole lot here at Riviera. It's been a while since he's been here. But the guy is really sharp in the stats. He's across the, in the top of the numbers across the board this week. So he was the stab as far as triple digits that made the most sense to me here to win the Genesis.
Yeah, I mean, to think that Brady's out here throwing 100 to 1s on our show here for you guys. I mean, anybody who would have watched at the beginning of the season said, this Brady Kannon, get him off of him. 100 to 1.
Right.
I mean, it's legit. It's legit. You have to do it, folks. So, hey, look, maybe Kirk is the guy this week. If it is, Brady will be gone. We will never see him again next week. He'll be buying a hotel in Las Vegas, if that's the case. All right, Brady will enjoy.
Some of it, Craig, might be the strength of these fields, too. This field is the strongest field we've seen all year. So you have a very good player like Chris Kirk at triple-digit odds.
Oh, my gosh. If he wins, Brady, I'm going to be texting you about this. If I'm going to be watching this, if this ends up happening.
I hope he does.
I hope so, too, for you. And for me, probably, by the time Sunday comes, because I got to take a break here and take care of that. We'll be right back with more NewsWire. Go ahead.
Scoring 19.7 points per game, 13.1 rebounds, and 8.2 assists. How can a center that is top 50 in scoring, first in rebounding, 7th in assists, and 8th in field goal percentage not make the All-Star team? That is such a huge snub for Domantas Sabonis.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Over $200 million in the state of New York in sports betting, half of that going to the state. All thumbs up, I guess, across the board here, right?
Yeah, New York just continues to be the standard bearer for the industry. People are betting a ton on NFL. We've still got March Madness coming up. This is really the prime time for the U.S. sports calendar with the NFL playoffs, Super Bowl, and then, college basketball, NBA, NHL in full swing.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
What are you thinking overall, kind of first reaction here? Patrick Mahomes, his legacy.
I don't know how far his drive is. Is his drive to become known as the greatest quarterback of all time? I don't think matching Super Bowls will really do that. I think there'll always be, the Brady people will always say, listen, it's a different era.
Football Full Circle, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
Well, look at the Heisman Trophy.
The early line.
And what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon. Not bought at the deadline.
NewsWire.
We're getting a lot of news, trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterbacks,
Pharrell
backup quarterbacks.
coast to coast.
I want to watch great players make buckets and win games.
Game time decisions.
I have no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they
In-game live.
Just
Prime
took 'em
time.
yard for a grand slam.
The bottom of the fourth inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports Rage
That was
Late
good betting.
Night.
We waited for 1.5. We got paid.
We
We
did.
didn't like the 2.5. Jumped on
There's
it.
no taking weeks off in golf betting ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. It was interesting that I found that the best commercial, I thought, during the Super Bowl was this commercial, America Runs on Dunkins. It had Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck and Matt Damon and Tom Brady. And the funniest part of this, too, was this morning, after I dropped my son off at school, every once in a while I'll go into Dunkin' Donuts, like you guys all do, get a coffee, get something to eat, right? And so I go in there, and on the TV is the commercial playing on this loop, like this constant loop. Like I guess the commercial's like a minute, and it's like and I found myself online like watching it over and over and over again. I don't know, why did I think this was the best commercial of the Super Bowl? I'm not sure. I would never, by the way, have that Dunkin's drink and all that. I guess it's like. It's a coffee, I think, and then it has like 3 munchkins, I think, on there in the end with like a stick. I don't get into all that. Just give me the coffee and give me whatever food I want to eat. But regardless of that, and some of the backstory there, I think you could find it online, of them playing football with Tom Brady and them throwing it into a donut hole and all that. Very, very good stuff, I thought, and a job well done. So I wanted to honor the best commercial of the Super Bowl as we move forward out of our Super Bowl coverage into everything else that we're doing here on the show. Okay, so speaking of which, we got Pharrell Coast to Coast coming up at 3 o'clock Eastern, so make sure you stay tuned for that. In addition, we've got Game Time Decisions in-game live. NBA games, again, if those of you watching the NBA, betting on the NBA, running out of time here, at least for the time being, because the All-Star break is coming up here real soon. It's a fun weekend in the NBA. We have it covered for you here on SportsGrid. In addition, as a reminder, Fantasy Sports Today, we continue on this Saturday morning, but our content shifts over to fantasy baseball. I know a lot of you know me for that. So if that's your thing, get ready, because we're going to start covering that this week. That is this coming Saturday morning right here on SportsGrid. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I'll be back here tomorrow for our next edition of NewsWire at 11 a.m. Eastern. And until then, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Remember, smarter to be on SportsGrid, and I will talk to you tomorrow. See you then.